Good morning. No one looks bright-eyed and or bushy-tailed this morning, not even myself. I get it.
Good morning.
It's one of those Saturday mornings.
Congratulations on your award.
We will have a lot of
Yes.
classmates that aren't on today because of, prior vacations that were scheduled, just other things that were scheduled. And due to the fact that I moved the date, I understand. It's one of those when you have your summer all scheduled out around classes and all the things. So I do apologize for disrupting everyone's schedule last week. And the bad thing is I knew I had to go. I just never put the two dates together. And I'm like, wait, the 8th. Oh, wait. So it was one of those for me where I didn't think it all the way through. And I promise today isn't a long class meeting. We'll meet briefly just to kind of do any housekeeping, any kind of questions or things of that nature that you all may have. We have one little small activity we'll do today. And then you can go back to sleep, house cleaning, kids activities, or just nothing. I think I'm gonna do a few of nothings today. It's on my list, just a few nothings. But yeah, well, I take that back. I'm gonna have to go to the grocery store. I've been gone a lot this summer, and it's been brought to my attention that we've been out of milk for like 8 days. But I have a 20-year-old, I have a 25-year-old who's visiting, and a 15-year-old. I do believe between the two boys, somebody could have gotten milk. I don't know if y'all are facing those types of challenges, but it's like, is that a me problem? Is that a you problem? But we went through it. I'm going to go get milk today, though. So it became a me problem. Any interesting things that have happened over the summer y'all would like to share with your classmates as we wait through the next minute or two to let people get signed on? I told y'all I'm a chatty Cathy. I can talk all day. Yeah.
How was your? Go ahead.
I found that I was teaching 2 grades.
I think I heard from maybe 6 people. So we still should have a few on. Crystal, you got up early this morning and sat outside. I mean, before the sun gets, oh wait, I have many Crystals are on here. Crystal Mosley. You got you some.
It's the quietest place in the house.
You're muted. I can't hear you.
It's the quietest place in the house. Let's see.
Volume's not working.
Audio setting.
I was able to hear her.
Brandy, yours is muted too. I see you're talking.
I was just saying that I was able to hear Crystal.
I can hear you too, Miss Brandy. Can you still hear me?
It's not y'all. It was. I had my. Sorry. So Crystal, you sunshine or the heat?
It's the quietest place in my house. I have 2 boys, 6 and 1. One just turned 6, so 6 and 1.
You're running from. Yeah. Been there too. All right, guys, we'll go ahead and get our morning started. I'm going to open it up as always and ask if anyone would like to do a morning prayer for our group. So I'll open that up. Don't everybody volunteer at one time. You have to press unmute.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
This morning, Heavenly Father, we come before you, thanking you, God, for this day, God. God, we thank you for the opportunity, God, to come before you, God, in prayer, God. God, I ask, God, that you bless everyone that's on this line this morning, God, and anyone that couldn't join, God. God, I pray, God, that we get the knowledge we need, God, and you bless the instructor, God, with strength, grace, and mercy, God. God, I ask, God, that you look upon us, God, and bless our family, God. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank
Amen.
you.
Thank
Now I gotta get go. All right. So the way that today's class is structured, as I said, is one part is, do you all have any questions going into the last stretch of class? Because we're pretty much at the end now.
For the Dropbox assignment, would it be submitted in Canvas, or will we go straight to Dropbox?
There's actually
There's
two
actually
places.
two places.
I meant TK20. I'm sorry. It's been a
Yes,
long
there's
time
a
since I used TK20.
there's a
There's a
Dropbox
Dropbox
section that you have to put it in, as well as the 20, and it has to
and it
be in
has to
both
be in both
locations.
locations.
Okay, do we have to set up a TK20?
No, when you
No, when
click
you
on that
click on
link,
that
it'll
link,
take you
it'll
straight
take
to
you straight
it
to
because
it
it's
because it's
automatically set up.
automatically set up.
Okay.
Good question. Because you have several TK20 assignments that William Carey tracks over the course of your time in the program. Anyone else?
Were you all referring to the 6 domain project?
Yes.
And you said it's supposed to be in 2 places, in the regular place and in TK. Okay.
TK20, yes. Yes, you do have to submit it in both places in order to get credit. Your grade comes from the Dropbox. So when I grade it, I'll grade it out of Canvas. But then I also have to go into TK20 to show that you actually submitted it. And the university requires so many classes, so many assignments to go in TK20 between now and when you graduate.
And you did say for this evaluation that we can print it out and write on it and then upload it, correct?
Yes, ma'am, because it is the hardest thing to type on. Even if you put, I have literally downloaded it to PDF, and I have PDF editor, and it still would type 2 different things on 2 sheets. I've downloaded it in Microsoft Word, and everything shifted from side to side. So if you print it, write on it, they have, what is it, the DocuScans or whatever on your phone, you can take pictures and upload it. I'm fine with that. As long as I can read it, but I can read kindergarten through 2nd grade handwriting, so adult handwriting's easier. So yeah.
Okay, because I was trying to get some understanding of if you wanted, because I'm done with I always do my writing first. I was trying to get the both forms correct, because you do want both forms submitted, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Good questions. I bet someone else had that very same question. There's a lot of. Angelina, what part did you miss? I'm sorry. About the TK20 part? Oh, she's got it. Okay. And I really think that's my computer that's giving off an echo. I'm sorry. I normally restart my computer before Zoom calls, but I got like 3 applications that I literally can't close at this current moment. I'm getting ready for back to school PDs and I cannot take them off. So I was like, I can't shut it down. So I apologize for that as well. All right, so we're going to jump right into the end of this. So the end of this is basically, have you all heard of an elevator speech? If you've not, I'll go over it anyway. So an elevator speech is, okay, if you met someone on the elevator and they said to you, hey, tell me about the 6 domains. Can you pick one that maybe is your favorite? And can you tell them about it in a minute and a half or less? So, that's an elevator speech. So what I'm going to ask that you do is think about one of the 6 domains, because by now you've kind of read through all of them and have a, better understanding of what Marzano and Carbo's big thoughts are. So you're going to pick a domain and then you're going to give an elevator speech to your classmates about that one domain. And then we'll go to the next person. this whole activity, and I'm looking at some of your faces like, oh my goodness. This whole activity is just so that you can give everyone in your group just an insight about a domain that really stuck out to you. And if it, if all of them, I've had students in this course that all of them have stuck out, and I'm like, this is going to be a 3-minute elevator speech, but that's fine too. It's just making sure to hone in on some of those things that you've read about, and somebody said no sound, and that have come through as something that was interesting to you, or something that was like an eye opener or aha moment, basically. Okay. All right. In true cockerel fashion, who'd like to start us off?
I can
Go.
start. Go ahead.
Okay, it was two that that stood out to me, domain 3 and 4. So I'm gonna hit on domain 3. So domain 3 is just talk about the continuing of development for the teachers or the staff or whatever. When I started teaching, I only started teaching 4 years ago. I started at the middle school. So I was a first-time teacher. I worked at the Head Start before I went there, so I was good on classroom management. But it was another new teacher who the principal suggested or had her go sitting on another teacher's class to see how she kept the kids interested or whatever, to keep all the commotion down. And I had never heard of that. I had family members and friends that taught in school, but never heard of a teacher having to go evaluate another teacher or observe another teacher or whatever. But as we got into the different domains, and as I was reading, I saw where the teachers would send the veteran teachers that needed, help on certain things, whether they were stuck in the old age of teaching or whatever, to observe the new teachers, the strategies that they use that up to date, I guess, that would help them. And that brought back my remembrance to how the veteran teacher, when I started, was sent back. And I just like how teachers are able, if they think they need to, or if the principal think they need to be able to go and observe another teacher. They could give pointers. It doesn't matter how old or how long you've been teaching. Peer, just like kids in the classroom, peer coaching or peer teaching, it really, they open up better, I feel, with their peers. So you can learn a lot, and just able to talk to them and able to bring out things in you that you've probably already thought of, but was unable or scared to use it or whatever. And I think that will help a lot of teachers go forward if they just forget about, oh, she just started teaching, and she can't tell me nothing, or he can't tell me nothing. It really helps the school as a whole when everybody's like on one accord or whatever. And then that's what stood out in domain 3. And then domain 4, it talked about when we did community of care, how it's I never knew, like I said, when I came into public schools, how the community was involved in the school district here in Columbus, especially this past school term when I was at the elementary school. The church that was in the community that I worked in, they did a lot for the teachers. As far as they would come to all the events that we held at the school. They would be there for teacher appreciation for the first day of school, during the convocation before school started, they would be there. And how extra curriculum that brings the community together as well. When board meetings, when the parents come to sit in, ask questions, get involved with their kids. schooling or whatever to make sure that their kids are on point, or that they're on point or whatever, if they're missing a thing, because some kids don't tell their parents everything or whatever. So I think it's good when they're able to get involved with the community. Was that too
Thank
many?
you. You're great. That is great. And the first one, when you talked about it, I thought about collective teacher efficacy. And that was our big push last year, as we read Patty's work in the visible learning, and it was all about teacher collective efficacy and making sure teachers know you're not on an island. We do not teach in silos. And most people have at least one teammate, unless your school is small. And I've worked in a school where I was the only second grade teacher because it was only 25 kids. But
Oh, that was good.
I don't know if it was good or bad. Third grade teachers could only blame me if the kids didn't have what they needed.
Well, yeah.
But that's the thing about having teacher collective efficacy. And I've been doing a lot of reading with Brene Brown. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the author Brene Brown. She has the Dare to Lead, and all of her books about vulnerability. That's the one thing teachers don't want to have, is vulnerability. To come in a meeting or a data meeting and say, I don't know why they didn't get, RI 3.1. I don't know why they failed the algebra test. I have no idea. You know how much vulnerability it takes to walk in a room and say you don't know? So teacher collective efficacy with the continuous school improvement, those things to me go hand in hand. So thank you, Sharon, for starting us off. And I cannot remember, but I think it was Mart.
Yes.
Okay, Marta.
The domain that sticks out the most to me is domain 4. And I think it's just because I can relate to it specifically, because I have been in a school where that was not present at all. And then I went to a school where it definitely was. And so it was a big change, because I had actually got to the point where I considered not teaching anymore. And then once I said, no, I'm going to give this another shot. And I went to another school, and it was just amazing what a difference it was when you go to a school that has established that community of care and collaboration. I didn't feel like I was on an island anymore. I didn't feel like there was any kind of toxic, negative interactions. It was just all positive and caring. And so I feel like that makes a huge difference. And so that's why that domain sticks out so much to me. As an administrator, using this domain, I would want to establish positive relationships with people, and try to, really implement procedures that would let my teachers and students and all the staff know that they are cared for and they are honored, and everybody has, something to contribute. Nobody's left out. And I would like to have, meaningful PLCs, weekly. We do that at our school now, and we get together and we discuss meaningful topics and we help each other. If we can lighten the load of somebody else, we do it. New teachers that come in, we really try to help them as much as possible, because we know how important that is. One thing that I wish we did a little more of was the teacher observations, because I feel like that is very beneficial, because I have done that before at another school where we would actually go sit in another teacher's classroom and observe them. And to me, that's very beneficial, because everybody can learn from each other. And you can get, new insights and new strategies, and because there's no way we can think of all the things by ourselves. So I would like to, push for that as an administrator. And also teacher input. This domain talks about teacher input, and I feel like that's really important, because sometimes I feel like we don't get to put as much input into decisions as we should be able to, since a lot of times it directly affects us and our students. So I feel like teacher input should really be utilized, and I would try to do my best to do that. We have an administrator now that really does utilize our input, and we appreciate it. He tells us all the time, you're the professionals. If you tell me something and I don't like the sound of it, I might let you know, but I trust you. At the end of the day, I trust you, and I'm going to watch and see if what you have to say works. And if it does, keep doing it. If it doesn't, I'll let you know. But he really does trust us. He tells us that all the time, and that's really important to us. Another thing about domain 4 is celebrating accomplishments. I feel like that's important for students and teachers. You know, teachers need to feel like, you know, that what they do is valued and celebrated, just like students need to feel celebrated and valued. So doing that in different ways through social media, or just, you know, providing them little happies every now and then, or just recognizing them in some way, it helps improve the morale of students. It helps improve the morale of teachers. So that's pretty much all I've got.
That's good stuff, Marta. I like the idea of teacher rounds. That's what I call it. We started instructional rounds last year, and our teachers really enjoyed it. So yes, I would agree. Going into other classrooms is such a bonus. Even if you're an ELA teacher and you go into a math teacher's classroom, there's so many benefits from watching and seeing how someone else does something. All right, guys, who's next? Don't everybody unmute at the same time.
Domain 2, and I believe it was 5. Yeah, domain 2 and 5 stuck out to me. I'm gonna start with domain 2 because last school term, let's just say the goals and stuff was not communicated clearly to the staff, and it really hurt the staff. And after going through domain 2, I realized what was our problem in the school within the school year was nothing was communicated clearly with us. Like goals and stuff, it was like a revolving door. Everything was changing because nothing was communicated clear to us at the beginning of the school year. So when I went through domain 2, I was like, that is very important because your staff cannot be effective if they don't know what you expect or what the district expect, because you're not communicating what the district expect. So that was very essential to me was domain 2. Like all the other ones was good as well, but experiencing domain 2 not done effectively let me know the importance of domain 2. Like, because if that's not clear, you will decrease. Like every time we took a benchmark, our district administrator would be up there fussing. It was like, we never knew the goal. They came up and they was like, "What's y'all goal this year?" We were like, "What goal?" And it was like it wasn't communicated clear. So I was like, "Okay, now that's one thing administrator do need to communicate with their staff, the goal that the district have set for the district and for that school." So that's why domain 2 stuck out to me, because it's adamant. You got to let them know. Then domain 5 stuck out because that was also a problem. And then that's not in this district and my last district I worked in, my last school, now a district school. If your staff don't trust you, it's a problem, because first of all, there's no relationship there, and then you don't have communication with them. If they're going over your head because they don't trust you, that's a problem. If they can't come to you and you give them an answer to a question, you have to go ask for the answer. That's a problem. So I just feel like your core values and the principle of the building need to establish a relationship with their staff, from the teachers to the students to the janitors to the cafeteria. You can't have the whole building hating you, because it's not going to be effective as well. So like I said, I mean, yeah, it was like I said, 2 and 5 stuck out to me because I actually experienced that this year. Like I didn't have a problem, but everybody else would come to me. I was like, I don't have a problem. She talked to me. And I was like, okay, but she talked to me. But listen to everybody else complain and think one way, and it was just she was an introvert. She wasn't an extrovert. So but kind of going through, you have to kind of be what you're not to make your school effective. So I mean, I just like I said, 2 and 5 was very essential to me. Like I said, those are 2 things that when I was an administrator, I would make sure I hit hard, because I don't want my staff not trusting me and not believing that I can run the school, and I don't want them not knowing our goal, because it looks bad not only on them but on me as well. So like I said, I experienced that last school year, and I said, that was rough. It was rough. So that's why those 2 stuck out to me. It kind of point out to the thing, okay, that's what was wrong with our school. That's what was wrong with our school. That's why we weren't effective. when I went through those 2 domains. It was like everything was popping out to me. I was like, wow.
Well, good. Good. I do believe clear expectations. You set those the first day you walk into a PLC or a PD. It's if your staff doesn't know the direction, it's just like if you get on a cruise, you're not just going to take a cruise. I want to know exactly what are our stopping points. What am I supposed to expect on this journey? So I think that's the same thing on our 187-day calendar is what is the journey? Is the expectation at the end to be 80% proficiency? Are we just saying, okay, we need to increase by 5%? These two things are different. So yes, I think clear expectations are essential. And trusting your leader is also essential. You know, I always said I would go anywhere.
I have a question for Crystal.
Oh, go ahead, share.
Dr. When she said that, were you saying that when you had your observation with your principal, when they call you in to, talk about your observation, did y'all not set goals, or did she not ask you, what would your goals be? I know that's our principal always asks that.
Ma'am, by the time I had my observation, my district administrator was kind of had took over our school.
Oh goodness.
By the time I had my observation, it was my principal and the district administration. Now, our district had all new administrator last year, and it's kind of the same way this year. I had to search for a mentor.
Okay.
So nobody had the qualifications. So I had to use district administrators for my mentors. So everybody was new, and my principal was very, very new. She had just got her license. She done started as assistant principal. She went right into principal. And yeah, by the time I had my observation, it was a district administrator in with her, and God blessed me because the administrator was my 3rd grade teacher.
Oh. Well, hey, you done did your domain, so now you can set your own goals.
I know now.
I'll go.
All right, Jasmine.
The domains that stood out to me, or the domain that stood out to me was domain 5. I think just realizing the task that the administrators have to shift or establish or reestablish if there's a specific climate or culture already in the school. One of the activities that I truly enjoyed was looking at the move that bus analogy and being able to understand the different types of teachers that are in each that are in the schools, and being like transitioning into a leadership role. I've been able to realize what teacher is what, and just realizing the task that the administrators have to kind of shift that. Another thing I kind of made notes what I was going to talk about is that the values that is expected should be demonstrated in everything. That was another thing. So I realized administrators do things certain way because they have to. It's not just because they want to, and it's the student's best interest that they do it for. So the domain 5 was very informational for me, and just understanding the purpose that they do specific things, the purpose that they do specific events, and the way that they structure them in order to create this specific climate that they want for the school. So, yeah.
Thank you, Jasmine. I would agree, being very specific. And I didn't realize, and unlike your principal, Crystal, I've climbed up through every rank. I feel like I've been a teacher, I've been an interventionist, I've been a literacy specialist, an AP for years, and then a principal. But I didn't realize until you get in this seat, all the things you want to do and all the things you can't do. But being transparent is the one thing you have to do. It's like the must. You cannot walk through life as an admin and not be transparent. And if you don't know, you just say the district hasn't given me that information yet. And going through COVID as an admin was the one time in life that I realized that if you're not transparent, people will not move forward. And so you got to make sure that you know who you are, what your values are before going forward. Who's next?
I'll go. You want me to? I was gonna go on that because I was gonna piggyback off of what y'all have previously said, because domain 5 was the one that stuck out to me. it really helps when you have a solid admin to kind of let the flow of everything else happen. And I think that if your core values are, obvious, then the rest of them kind of follow in line too, and that they just kind of set the attitude for the whole environment.
All right, thank you, Keaton, for sharing and it setting the environment. That's a running theme, I think, for today. All right, who's up next?
I'll go.
Go ahead, Rose. Mary.
Sorry. I agree about the core values domain 5. I had a really interesting conversation with my offsite mentor, and she came in after 4 back-to-back administrators, and one, I think she took over at spring break. And it also kind of goes along with domain 6, the resource management. And right now, just within education, it's still, even though we are past COVID, it's still very hard, everything we've gone through, and there's not as many teachers coming out with degrees. And she was talking about like the trust and transparency. She really has to trust her teachers and be transparent with the parents, but it's difficult because some people are still stuck in their old ways, and so you're trying to like coach them into making changes. But she was like, but the resource management side, it's very hard finding new teachers. So she was like, you have to be willing to really work with the teachers you have and try and get them to a good place. And I've been thinking about that. Like, we had a hard time replacing some teachers that left. So domain 6, I felt like was really short reading through it in the book. But I've seen some of our courses that we'll take are a little bit more to do with that. So I'll be really interested when we get to those parts, because I feel like when you're a teacher and you're in the schools, the other domains you're a little bit more familiar with. But domain 6, to me, like the fiscal and the budget side of everything, I'm still so unsure about that, just to be honest. And I imagine that's got to be hard if you have not been a part of those conversations when you become a new administrator, to all of a sudden have to do a budget for your school and know, I don't know what's best.
You are so correct, Rose, about that. Like, I've met with the budget and finance director. I've met with the federal programs director, because as an AP, I didn't have to worry about what the budget looked like. Where do we spend money? Do we need more postage mail money, or do we need to order these books? And do we have enough money to do a new program? And it's like my head was spinning. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to send some emails, see who will meet with me, and break all of this down for me. And again, going into any kind of leadership role, I would say never be afraid to ask questions. And until you sit in the principal seat, some things you don't do until you have to do them. My principal always did the budget between her and the bookkeeper. I sat in on some of those discussions, but never did I make the decision. So now it's like, yeah, fiscal and resources are like my big thing. Like, I need to know this. And I also need to know that my teachers know what they're spending their money on. And I've asked my bookkeeper, I tasked her this summer to print out what they've spent their money on as a grade level for the last couple of years, and asking them, do you want to keep spending your money this way? Because to be fiscally smart is to allow teachers to say, hey, we've been ordering these Scholastic News for 3 years, but they sit on a shelf in my classroom. That's $7,000. Like, let's take that off the shelf and put it back in your budget. You may want to pay for something else. We're not a title school, so our budget isn't as full as other schools. And so trying to take things away to add things is how I feel like we could be more fiscally sound. But that is an area that I'm like with you, and I've read the book a couple of times and I'm like, I really need a little bit more But yes, that's an area that I think as admin, as you're doing your internship, ask questions around that. Ask questions around how is the budget structured? What are the budget codes? Because that's another thing. If it's coded one way, you can't spend that money on certain things. And how do I get to move money? Like those are types of things when you're working with your mentors, especially your district mentors, to ask them those questions. Your principal mentors can answer a lot of that as well, but asking the questions, things that you've read in the 6 domains that kind of stand out, but you're still questioning. I would tell you to go ahead and start drafting questions. So when you're working with your mentors, you can be very specific in what you need to know more information about, because everybody has a learning curve and everyone's learning curve doesn't look the same. All righty, who's up next?
I'll go if it's okay.
Yes, ma'am, Brandy.
Okay, just to continue the conversation from what Rosemary discussed as far as domain 6, that's one of the domains that I'm also challenged with, I'm afraid, because when it comes down to resource management and as a leader, as a principal of a building, being responsible for that is a bit intimidating. While I've been doing my offsite hours, I did have a conversation with my mentor, and she even put things in a different perspective as far as recruitment of teachers. And the example that she gave when it comes down to even understanding your budget or your limitations with your budgets, in reference to hiring teachers. For example, you can have a teacher, let's say, that's been a teacher for 20 years, and they have their full licensure and they have a specialist degree. Great teacher, great candidate for your school. But when you look at your budget, can you afford her or him? Because district-wise, the district has to also pay the benefits portion of that salary as well. And so as leaders, when we think about wanting to hire the best of the best, we have to consider what that looks like, which is more financially safe to do. Because if I have a brand new teacher with 0 to 5 years of experience, I don't have to spend as much money on that teacher per se, district wise or just salary wise. So which teacher do you take? Do you take the teacher that is going to be solid in the classroom and spend thousands of dollars on that teacher? Or do you take that teacher with 0 to 5 years of experience just to protect your budget? And so when she explained that to me, it just made me think of, wow, you know, that's even something that as a leader, we're gonna have to consider. So domain 6 is something that I'm afraid of, but what I've been taught is to tackle those things that you are most fearful of so that you can overcome them and focus on the other areas that you're strong in. The other domain that sticks out to me as we take the course is domain 5, which talks about the core values. And I think it's important that we understand as aspiring leaders that we're not going to be able to please everybody in our building. And so there's a fine line with being transparent and building trust, because sometimes people can misconstrue that as friendship. And we have to be careful as far as how we convey trustworthiness and how we convey our transparency. But I think that if we keep the mission and vision at the forefront as far as improving school culture and climate and don't deviate from that, we put our focus on transparency in those areas and trust in those areas, there won't be any way to misconstrue our mission for our building, you know. So that's what I thought about as I read domain 5.
Good job on that, Brandy. I really love how you discuss the actual teacher shortage, because it is real. I have principals in the district still looking for teachers. And I know I saw on the news this morning where Jackson Public School is doing another job fair, and the shortage is real. I just left the National Association of Elementary School Principals Conference, and we had a Zone 4 luncheon, and one of the principals from Florida said he started the summer off with 20 teachers short, and now he's down to 10. I'm like, how are you going to run a K-8 building and you're short 10 people? Like that made me hive. Like, I'm like, I don't know how you do that. But the teacher shortage is real. And if you don't invest in your people and make them feel valued, then they leave. And if there's a pool of 10, I'm going to where I feel valued, where I know that I'm going to be treated. There was a saying that I heard a few years back that teachers don't leave the profession, they leave their bosses. They love teaching, they love the children, but they don't like the way that they're managed. And so they leave their jobs. So that is something to remember as you go forward, that as an administrator, you do want to be your teacher's biggest advocate. All right, who's up next?
Can I go?
Of course.
And I'm glad that you just said that, because that kind of goes back to domain 4 about building a culture of care. And I know that it's kind of aimed at students, but it's important to have that for staff as well. And I think coming from a failing school, that it's important that we focus on collaboration, because a lot of people can be stuck in their ways and they can be, so off to themselves and think that this works. I just recently did a PD this week that focused on collaboration, to focus on the way that others think. Like me being from the Mississippi Delta, we did a study, like the group that I'm in, it's a cohort of all Delta teachers. And we came together to figure out why in the Delta are we failing, but maybe 40 miles up by Oxford, why they're a high performing district. What are we doing so different? And it's because we don't like to reach out, and we don't like to talk to others to see what works. Everybody wants to be the masterful teacher, and everybody wants to, be stuck on what they think that works, when evidently something isn't working. And another thing we lose focus of is that a lot of us are not making decisions that are based on student success either. So that's why I like domain 4, because it focuses way more on student success, and building a culture of care, because with being up here, it's insane how you can walk in a school and you don't feel welcome in a school. I think it's important to establish a welcoming environment. Last boss that I had, love my boss to death, but with me being on leadership, I'm the more colorful teacher. I'm the more how do I put? I'm just the bubbly teacher. I'm elementary, and he came straight from high school. It was his first year being elementary, and he didn't understand about the bulletin boards. He didn't understand about when the kids come in, good morning, they want high fives, they want hugs, because he's so high school and he's not used to it. He's more of his coffee, and he's going straight to his office. So it's crazy that he tried to get it together before he left, and tried to understand, yes, I know I'm in elementary, because he didn't know the importance of having what am I trying to say? Trying to have school programs, like Black History program, Christmas programs. He didn't understand the importance of field day. He didn't. It was just, yes. You look, yes, I swear.
Culture building. That's how you build the culture of your school.
It was because he came in, like I said, we're F school. So he came in with the just straight business attitude, like we're gonna work. We don't have time for fun, we don't have time for this, we don't have time for that. We have to grow. We've been a failing school for the last past 10 years. It's time to get down to business. And I love that about him. But it's just, you still have to realize that you're dealing with children. And you're dealing with the parents of elementary children. So when they come in, they want to know, why does this look like a prison? Why does it look so dark? Where's the color? Where's the teachers that saying good morning? Because you can have parents that come in that want to, sign a kid in or something like that. And they're sitting there waiting about 10, 15 minutes for somebody to even say good morning. Yes, I worked in that type of environment. So domain 4 is very important. PLCs and collaborating and all of that, because you can understand why you're failing, because everybody's just in their own little hub. This is what works for me. We can sit in this meeting. You can say what you want to, but this is what I'm going to do. So domain 4, as a school leader, I think when I do get my license, I'm going to drill it. It's important to work together. It's important to make your environment welcoming. Like, I just know that from experience, and I know that's something that I'm going to really, really, really focus on.
Thank you for that perspective. I would agree. We say in our building, our superintendent said it years ago, and I just live by practice radical hospitality. I mean, if a parent walks in, you're supposed to be the nicest to that parent, because basically that is the customer you're serving. We service our customers via their children. But at the end of the day, if I leave my most precious with you, then when I walk in your building, I need to be treated as if I left my most precious with you. So radical hospitality. Another thing that stood out that you said, collaboration. I'm a Delta girl too. I grew up in Greenwood. And I went to school at Delta State. So when I started teaching, I was in the Delta. It's a different environment. It's a different culture. It just is. And then I left there and I started teaching in inner city Jackson. It's a whole nother different culture. And you have to adjust to that culture. And now I'm in suburban Madison, whole nother culture. And it's just learning who to collaborate with and who to reach out to. But I will say, you know, finding a place to build relationships outside of the Delta was the best thing I did. I can't remember what conference I went to, and it was at the Jackson Convention Center, like my second year of teaching. And I met these people that were from, it was somewhere in South Mississippi. And like I still text and talk to some of those teachers still today, because I'm like, what are y'all doing that we can implement here at my school? And my school was similar to yours at the time. The teachers all taught from their boxes that they had for many, many years. And I'm like, no, that was my perspective. And I was young and I was ready. Like, you're not going to tell me what to do because I'm young and I know more than you because I just got my degree. So that was my attitude at that moment. But I've gotten better. I've grown up. But just understanding when you are in pockets, like the Delta is a pocket. And if you never taught in the Delta and if you never ridden through the Delta, I would recommend it. If you can go out and visit schools like that are in Shaw, Mississippi, or go down.
Different.
It's just a different environment. One is lack of exposure. It's just a lack of exposure. Those kids aren't taking trips to Disney. Those kids aren't taking, they're not even taking trips to Jackson. We talk about just Disney. We're going out of state. They're literally, and I hate to say landlocked, because they just don't get exposure. And I'm sure some of you all work in places that you're saying, yeah, my kids are the same. And if it wasn't TikTok or, you know, now that they have all these other outlets, but they're not seeing the real. So it is a different environment. And if you don't come in with a community of care and love for those kids, they don't work for you. People work hard for people they care about and that they know care about them. And it's a different environment, but I miss my babies from there. I was at home, I guess during Christmas break, and this kid standing like over me, towering, and was like, hey, Miss Davis. And I kept walking. I hadn't heard Miss Davis in, I don't know how, 23 years. And grabbed my shoulder, and I turned around. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, and I had that baby in third grade, like grown up with kids and a family. Like, it's so funny. But that made my heart happy because I felt like she remembered me. So apparently I left an impression on that third grade student. And that's something as teachers and as educators and administrators, we should always leave a stamp on children. I always hear people say, well, why do you want to be an administrator? So I can affect more lives. How do you plan on affecting more lives? What is your goal when you say that? My goal is to build relationship with kids. I don't care if you're a 5 on an MCT, I went way back. If you're a 5 on the app, I don't care. I want to know that you feel loved, cared for, and safe when you're at Mansdale Upper. That's what I want kids to walk away and say, well, Dr. Cockrell made me feel safe. Dr. Cockrell, even though I was in trouble in her office, I knew she cared about me. So that's part of knowing what your core values are, your core vision for your school. Is it all about test scores or is it about people? And I had a superintendent that said, are you a policy person or a people person? In my early career, I was a policy person. The policy said this is what we're going to do. I think as I've grown up, in education. Now I'm a people person, because if the policy doesn't work for the people, then we either need to reestablish the policy or we need to find different people. And we can't find different people. Our students are our students. So with all that being said, and I got off on a tangent, Watasha, I'm so proud of you for working in the Delta and sticking it out. I really am. It's a beautiful place, and I get up to Cleveland because I like to get back to Delta State every now and again. I'm trying to convince my 15-year-old to go there. She said no.
Convince them to go. Delta State is great. If if they're confused about something, your professor's right there. You don't have to go all over the place, and they know you by name, not by number.
She said no.
Delta State alumni, tell them to go.
Me too, fighting okra. Yes, they won't go. I have 2 boys that did not go that way, and I'm working on the girl. She's like, nothing's to do up there. It's just fields. City children. All right, guys, who's gonna go next? We haven't heard from a male. I hate to put somebody on the spot, but we have 3 guys on the
I go.
Thanks,
I
Adrian.
go. For me, it's domain 5 core values. Just to go back to what you said, building relationships. I'm that way. I coach football, but I also think that as an administrator, you got to build a relationship with your staff as well. My first year, I was one of those where I was done at Christmas. I had no, I had a mentor, but not a mentor. So my first year coming in, was amazing struggle for me, not being able to find the resources or I guess that guidance that I needed to make sure that I was doing things correctly and effectively for the students. Also, I think that to me, communication, I'll just be, I don't like being told by a student or another teacher, well, so-and-so said for you to do this. I like that. That's not effective communication to me. So don't get upset when it don't get done because you didn't tell me directly. So we had a lot of that going on, not enough communication for me. Also, to me, your integrity. Be honest with me. I don't like hearing things from other teachers like, oh, well, you're not doing this in your classroom when she told you to do that. I don't like that. Just be honest with me. And my thing is also I say it all the time to my athletes, what is your drive? I want to know what drives my administrator. What's your passion? Like, what is your goal for the school? What is your goal for the 8th grade, 7th grade, 6th grade, the high school? And then maybe that drive can inspire other educators to get on the same drive that you're on, and we can make it better for our students. And also be able to delegate some of the work. I don't mind doing work. I was begging for a duty post, even though I drove the bus, but I still was begging for a duty post. Like, hey, what can I do to help? Because we had the same 4 people just doing all the work. Also, like doing the benchmark testing. We use the same people every time. Just spread the work around. People work when they know they feel valued. I think I got the best of both worlds. I know I'm rambling, but I think I got the best of both worlds because I've worked out in the private sector as well as coming into the education field. So being a supervisor for 7.5 years, I understand what it's like to feel like you have to do all of the work. But once I figured it out in year 3 that, hey, you got people on your team that's willing to help you, just let them help you. And people never know that you stressed out or stressed thin if you don't let somebody know something. So I just think you have to be an effective communicator.
I would agree 100% there, Adrian. Who would like to go next?
I would.
All right.
I like domain 1, using data to drive our improvement, focusing on it. We've all used data. We've all had to develop get used to using over the last few years, but it's important. I saw this from a different perspective, knowing the how and why to effectively use data to make sure we improve in the areas we want to improve on. It's all about setting goals. I know for my students, we set goals at the beginning of the year. They can tell you their goals, they know their goals, but I think sometimes for teachers, we get lost in those goals, and it's not, we don't use it as effectively as we should. I really did like learning about root causes, digging deeper, figuring out what's happening with the students. I like that, using the proper interventions and giving direct feedback. So those things stood out for me when it talked about using data.
All right, thank you, Lavaisha. You brought out data point that the data domain 1. I think we've kind of gotten away from it because we did that at the very beginning. But if you are not in a school that analyzes data, I don't care if it's public or private, then that's something you need to start steering your people towards, because data is what drives and leads your school. If we don't have our data to look at, we're just shooting in the dark. And we need to, and I'll go back to Adrian's point about communicating. You need to communicate the data. The most uncomfortable conversations, I think, are around data, because you don't want people to feel like they're not doing their job, and you don't want to blame children. So it's trying to find that fine line of how to discuss data where it still makes people feel valued, and that they understand that the ultimate goal is to help students. And that's always to me that fine line, because if I'm sitting in a data meeting and I know my scores are the worst out of my grade level or my department level, how do I sit in that meeting and still have a form of dignity, and that you're not going to shame me while I'm sitting there? So that is a fine line, but data drives your building. You can't set a goal if you don't know your data and that where you want your students to end up. And I love that you pointed out you talk to students about data. And we have, they have a sheet that they set their data, and they look at what they made on the end of the year test. And then they talk about, well, I know I can't get 30 points, but I may be able to grow 5 points when we start looking at our benchmarks over the course of the year. So thank you for going back to domain 1. Feel like we forgot about it because we have been away from it for a while. All right, so who's up next?
I can go. Oh. Okay. I was trying to pick out one, but every time I started thinking about one domain, that it also ties into the other domains. And while we've been doing all the domains, I keep thinking not only about, like, I know right now I'm in a school where I'm in a good place. Like I work well with everybody around me. I think the principals are doing a good job. And when we talk about data, I feel like, especially in our PLCs, that even though probably my class might have had the lowest points on some things, I feel like we could, the culture was well enough that, I mean, we could talk about it, because I mean, I had some different places that the kids had to grow. And I thought too, I'm kind of skipping around, keeping this minute. I like the Ron Clark video, because I keep thinking on the principal side of it, if I see the teachers that are the different people on the bus, like how to get them into a different role or improve them. And I think that's what stood out with most of the domains we've looked at, is just on the side of, okay, if this is going on, or this domain is not strong in the school or in myself, how to get that to improve. And so that's where just trying to keep it all balanced is a lot of what stuck out, trying to figure all that out.
I agree 100%, Angeline. It is a balancing act for sure, because it's 6 of them, and we're always trying to make sure we're doing what's best in all areas. And can I ask you a question? As you analyze like the areas of your school, which domain do you feel like would be a point of interest for you to kind of push it forward in your building?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I think as a teacher, I'm really bad about trying to stay in my hole and not getting out of it. That's a tough one, because we talk about data. They're always trying to promote us. I see them delegating resource management. I very much know how all their values are. I think maybe the biggest one might be the culture, because I think there are some little pockets that are kind of negative Nellies, and maybe trying to work through keeping everybody on track and staying positive.
Okay, interesting. I like it. Okay, somebody else was wanting to go. I think it was you, Christy.
Yes. All right. So mine is kind of, I came from Head Start. So I did, 15 years. So 10 teacher in Head Start, 5 administrators. So I'm in JPS, coming to public. So my domain would be 4 and 5. Seeing more, recognizing the teachers for what they do. Like I think somebody said about the churches. So we have a church that sponsor us that, they bring us breakfast or, any little goodies, just to recognize the job that we do. We need more feedback from the teacher, teachers' input, because not always being an administrator, that's not always what works. So we need to see how the teacher feel, what they think, what is working for them in their classroom. Also, we always want something from the students. Like, okay, if you may grow, what are you going to do for the student? Celebration. We don't have that many celebrations, but we want something from them. So we have to give them something that little spunk, that little push to want to do better. As me being a team leader, I teach 6th grade math. So we have a team A, team B, because we have so many 6th graders at school. I'm at Chastain Middle School. By me being the younger teacher, we need to get in more teacher working together, because peers learn from peers. Teachers learn from teachers. So what might work in this classroom might work in this classroom to help the data. So we need to get in more, building more relationships and communicating and collaborating in the PLCs, or, strategies and goals and things like that. And I think one more thing in communicating effectively. That is a big must. Because if you sending someone to tell me something, why can't you, because I don't know, is this true or not? Then if I do it, and then if I don't, so communicating effectively.
Thank you, Christy. I think everyone's talked about communication. It's like standing in front of your classroom and you doing providing a lesson. If the kids don't know what the lesson is about when the class is over, you may as well not have been there. So yes, communication is always going to be important. Okay, so we are down to just a few people. So who would like to go next?
I'll go. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Sorry, that's okay. So the one that really stood out to me and was really interesting to reflect on was Domain 2, the Viable and Guaranteed Curriculum, because I've been with 2 districts now. The previous district, the school I worked for, was an A school from the start, like for decades. And the first principal that I came under as a brand new teacher, alternate route, she was very focused on instructional leadership and collaboration and data. And the current school that I'm working for, barely a B, has the potential to be an A, but the principal is more focused on culture and climate. Neither of which are bad, but I've had 2 different perspectives. So the guaranteed curriculum thing, my first principal, one of the best things she ever told me as a new teacher was focus on your instruction. And I was so overwhelmed. I had never been in a classroom before. And so when she just kept telling me, just focus on your instruction and the rest will come, I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And there was a very clear lesson plan format, and I embraced that. And it was very detailed. And I know a lot of the veteran teachers, there was kind of pushback on that. But as a new teacher, like, I really needed that structure. And so I just embraced that new lesson plan format and really just focused on my instruction. And as I had her and other administrators observing me, one of the things that really helped to retain me as a new teacher was that efficacy. I just realized over time, like, oh, wow, they're coming in here not to judge me, but to really encourage me. And they were so positive, and they were like, wow, you're doing this really well. And like, as an insecure new teacher, that was huge. And that really helped me to believe in myself over the course of that year and realize, like, wow, maybe I can do this. And they would just really push like specific instructional strategies, like, hey, next time why don't you throw in a think, pair, share. And they were really like focused on specific instructional strategies, like thinking maps. And so me embracing those things, I remember she made a comment. She's like, man, I really love hiring new teachers because I feel like I can mold them better, and they just do what I tell them to do. And they're willing to try these strategies I'm giving them. Whereas the veteran teachers, they've been doing the same thing for years and years, and it's harder to get them on board with the new instructional strategies. So she was very big on PLCs and collaboration. And so now under this new principal, it's been a huge difference because there's no official lesson plan format. There's no official or specific instructional strategies that they're trying to push. And I've asked him about that, and he's like, oh, well, we require teachers to turn in lesson plans, but the way they format it is up to them. His thing is teacher autonomy. And so I've been reflecting on, okay, well, what is better to have this structured instruction, like this structured format to push these strategies, or to what am I trying to say? Or to just kind of put it in the teacher's hands. And so it's just been interesting to reflect on.
That's a great viewpoint. Again, going back to domain 2, one that we've been away from for a while, but I like the idea of focus on the instruction, because I feel like if you're focused on the instruction, if you're doing instructional rounds and you're in classrooms and you're being positive and you're giving that feedback, I think you're building the culture, if that makes sense. Because what teachers want is support. Like, I need to know you see what I'm doing, you understand what I'm doing, help me improve if there's a place for improvement, or continue to support me moving forward. I think the two pieces blend together. And at my school, I don't even require them to turn in a lesson plan, because I go to their planning meetings. I don't need your lesson plan because I'm sitting in the room while you're planning and I'm asking questions. And I go in for 2 of them a month. The first one is when you're planning out what your overall themes are, your units and all of that. And the second one that I go in is because I need to know if there's anything I need to do to help you or support you. Do you need supplies? Do you need someone from the district to come in, because we have math specialists and whatnot? But I'm in the room, so I'm at the table, so I'm not going to read it. I tell them all the time, I said, if you're going to send me an email that's if you've sent me a dissertation, I don't have the time to read through your dissertation. Give me some bullet points, let me answer some questions, let me move on. And those of you who've emailed me probably notice I send back short responses. I'm normally on my phone responding because I want to be, give you immediate feedback if I can. But at the same time, I want to be that support system. So I don't know if there is a good balance, because I'm in a district that believes in autonomy, where we don't all do the same things in the buildings, but we feed. And I can give you an example. Our feeder school is the middle and high school. Well, this elementary gets to pick what math units they're using. Math curriculum, what ELA curriculum, everything. And then I get to pick my own curriculum. How hard is that for a middle school 6th grade math teacher? Like ELA, you can fill in the gaps because we're all going to learn how to read literature and how to read informational text. But math to me has so many steps and prerequisites that when I get to 6th grade and I get kids at this school that didn't learn something this way, and I get kids from this school and they did learn it this way, I just think it's a hodgepodge. And so the autonomy piece for us, we don't care for it as administrators, in that I wish we were more aligned in curriculum, if that makes sense. But our curriculum department says that she wants the principals to pick curriculum that is geared towards the students that we serve. So I don't think there is, Leanne, I don't think there is an answer to that. I wish there was. And if you find one, please email me later in life and tell me. All right, so we have a few more people that have not shared who would like to go next.
I'll go. I got you.
Thank you, Derek.
I was trying to be a gentleman. And all the ladies go first. Well, for me, what stood out, because I think it's because of my football background, is core values. We always stress that on an athletic team, core values. When you come in, you want to sets the tone for everything else. If you're a leader, once everybody knows where you stand and the thing that you believe, that kind of filters out to everybody else. So there is no not knowing what's going on, or why do they think this way, or why everybody's core values tell you what you are, even as a not even as a teacher, but even as a family. Like my family has core values. We talk about that a lot. So everybody knows what's expected. And I really believe that, to piggyback off of domain number 4, I think domain 5 should have been 4, and 4 should have been 5, because once you understand where a person comes from, then that community of care and collaboration starts to build itself. Because once you know who you're dealing with, then you know how to deal with them and how to work. And most people, once you know their core values, you know what they care about and who exactly they care about. So, but I've been in places where core values have been stamped from the door, and they tell you, this is what we believe, or this is what I believe, and this is what's going to happen, and this is who I am. And then it filters off into you start to understand how to deal and to collaborate with certain people. Now, the one thing that as far as domains go, I'm gonna be honest. I've been in the high school setting the whole time, and I've taught not state classes, so a lot of the data and things of that nature, I have no earthly idea what goes on with data. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not gonna act like I know. I have no earthly idea. So in this class, I've learned more about data than being an actual teacher. So it's just for me, it would be more on the lines of learning more about data, because I think as far as the dealing with people, that aspect, I think as far as I think being an athlete for so long and being a coach for so long, that helps you, because if you really look at it, us as teachers, we're just a collective team. And if everybody's on one accord, and if everybody's moving in the same direction, and everybody has the same voice, or everybody's speaking the same language, then everything else will take care of itself.
Thank you, Derek. I always said to the PE teacher who was a coach that used to work at our school, you look at data. If you coach, you look at data, because you're not going to take your guys out there before they've reviewed the play from their last game. I'm not going to let coaches sit in a room and say they don't look at data. They may not look at ELA and math or science data, but you know how to analyze data. I'm going to sit that right there and let you handle that, okay? But at the same time, I will say to the coaches on this Zoom meeting, when you go in for an admin position, because they know your coaches, guess what they're going to ask you about? They're going to ask you about data. Because if you're going to lead a group of teachers that are teaching ELA, and they are teaching math, and they are teaching science, and they're teaching your histories, and these kids across the lines of 3rd through 12th grade have to take these assessments, I would tell you to immerse yourself in those data conversations. If you don't have a seat at that table, go request it. Because if you're trying to go forward, and I know some of you all are going forward as an athletic director, which you have to have admin now for that. But if you're going forward in the position of wanting to be an AP or a principal in your district, sit at those meetings and listen to how they're analyzing data. Ask questions, because you want to be able to go in a room and say, oh, I know how to analyze data. And not because I was in EDL 602, but because I've sat in my building and I've analyzed this. And when you're working with your mentors, go in as that benchmark data is being reviewed, and sit with your mentor before it even is out to your teachers, so that you know exactly how do they think through analyzing that data before they even present it to their staff. That's just a point of recommendation for the guys that are coaches that don't teach content area that is tested. And that's just something I was told, well, my PE teacher was told when he was working on his admin. And I've just carried that because I sat in the room when he met with one of our district personnel, and they had that conversation with them of the trajectory now in education is if you were a coach past years, you were a great manager. But keep in mind, as we go back to domain 1, we're not just managers anymore, we're instructional leaders. So you want to be able to say, I'm also a manager, but I am an instructional leader. And this is how I can show you that I put time in to become that person. And I can speak to that because I was a second grade teacher who didn't take the third grade gate when I stepped into being an interventionist and a literacy specialist. So I had to, jump in and learn all the things of why this domain, or why this standard has to be taught before this standard, especially in math, because it wasn't the area where I spent the most of my time. So I just would like to put that on you to do that. We're down to 2 people. Who would like to go next?
Me.
All right.
I'm going to talk about domain 1, the data-driven focus. I'm a very data-driven person. And some of my teammates can say I'm always analyzing it, writing it down, figuring out where I went wrong, trying to reflect and see if it was my teaching, if maybe it's just a certain, section of students that didn't get it, why that section of students didn't get it. And as far as school-wide, I've been on 2 different sides of this coin. Both of the schools that I have been in were data-driven. They're both in the same district. But where I'm at now, our expectations are clear and upfront. They're talked about. They're always helping us with everything. Do you need help here? Do you need materials? What can I do? Can I come in and model? Can I co-teach? They're constantly trying to help us meet our goals. And there's never any bashing or anything when it comes to data like, oh my gosh, your class is the lowest. Why is this? And it's not like that where I am now. The previous school I was in, we would have you could just feel the dread walking into the data room because you knew what was coming, because it would be school-wide. And we were pre-K through 3rd grade at that school, and all the teachers were in there and they showed everybody's data and analyzed it together. And it wasn't always well, what can we do to help? It was more of, well, what are you doing wrong type of situation. So I think that the data is a wonderful thing when used correctly. In a school district, it can be very encouraging and uplifting, but it can also be downfall whenever it's used as a weapon and not a tool to drive.
Great perspective, Crystal. I agree 100%. And I always say that is that vulnerability piece. When you bring things out that speaks to what people are doing on a job, you don't want to shame people or make them feel bad. Data meetings are supposed to be, yeah, let's go in because we're getting ready to fix this and make it better. And I know my admin is here to help. So yes. All right, last person's up.
I guess that's me, huh? Okay. Biggest domains I like to pick out is domain 4 because I'm a big team player. Like, I'm a coach as well, so I'm a big team player. I like to collab a lot, but the school I'm working at isn't. Let's just say that there's a lot of teachers that is all about themselves instead about all together, and it's kind of hard to work together, especially when they like to do it their way, where there's other ways you can do it. And being young and most of them being like veteran teachers, it's kind of challenging because they don't want to do it the new way, but sometimes the new way works too. So that's what I want to incorporate that on for domain 4. And domain one, I hate data too. I don't like it. I hate it. I can't stand it. If I wish I dislike it since my first year teacher, I don't like it. But me being an Algebra 1 teacher is needed. And so all the collaborative meetings every month,
And so I work for JPS too. So we go to a different school every meeting. There's like 7 high schools. So, and I just dread every time going there, but it's needed because you need to know where all your kids are at, and you know what you're gonna do to work and so forth. So I hate it, but it's needed. And so those are the 2 domains that stood out to me.
Yeah, Algebra 1, kids walking in your class, dreading your class the day school starts. And I mean, you know, kudos to you for teaching that class, because that's like, you know, that's that subject area test that they have to pass to go on to the next grade. And it is a big stressor. And yeah, data is needed, because you got to know where to pick up and where to carry them to the next time, and where the gaps are. So Jamal closed us out. That's the last person. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask of their classmates about their domain before we move forward? Okay, this is not a group that asks a lot.
I would like to ask.
All right, Brandy.
And we'll close. I know everybody wants to leave, but you've just received an award, and congratulations on your award. But which domain do you focus on the most as a leader?
So, I'm gonna give you the short to the long answer. In my interview, my principal asked me, how am I going to look different from the principal that just left? And she asked that question because I've been at that school since it started in some capacity. And I've worked with my admin since the school started. And so in the mindset is that don't be cookie cutter like that person. How are you going to change things? Well, collaboration and community of care is something I really think I'm going to focus a lot on. My former principal came from middle school, and she had a very middle school mindset, and a lot like what Leanne said, she wanted the data to be the main thing. What are we driving in instruction? And let's stay focused on instruction. But it also, what I've noticed in the last school year is that some of our teachers kind of got a little burned out by all of the data. Does she care about us? Does she care about the kids? And because I was the AP, I was the place that was Vegas. So people would come in my office after a data meeting and vomit. And they knew they could. And they knew they had that sense of security that I wasn't going to walk in her office and say, well, they're mad because of da-da-da-da, you know? So I'm going to stay focused on instruction, because you can't have an A school if you're not focused on instruction. And we are the only elementary school in the state of Mississippi that is a school of innovation. So my focus is also on being more innovative in the things that we do. But in order to do that, I got to do some of that community of care, so that teachers don't think, oh, she's going to walk in and be the same admin that is going to be a drill on just the data. I want it to be a balanced approach. And that's why Leanne's going to email me later when she figures out the answers. But that's the goal, is to make sure that I'm gonna focus on domain 1, because you have to have a data-driven piece of instruction. Our domain 2, our curriculum is set. We do great things with the curriculum. I think domain 6 is where I'm learning. We've talked about that, the financial fiscal responsibilities, I'm learning there. So yeah, I think I'll be in all of them all the time. But I do want our teachers, I want my people to feel loved and cared for. And when they would come in and feedbacks with me, I would always ask them, what's your Zen zone? Like, if you don't have a point where you can turn school off and just be a mom, just be a dad, a big brother or sister, or, you know, just be you, then this profession will take away your joy. And as administrators, y'all have to remember that, because the emails come at 10 o'clock. The phone calls and the text messages come at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. You have to have a point in life where you turn all of that off. I tell my teachers, once you leave this building, when your bottom hits the seat of your car, don't answer another email. Talk to those people in the morning when you clock in. You know, like you have to have a sense of separation from school. And so that's part of my community of care. And I want to reach out to, we have a very great community and it's a suburban school, so everybody knows everybody. But at the end of the day, we have to take care of ourselves first. Is put the oxygen mask on you before someone else. And that's my big focus. Anyone else? I told you I'm very wordy. I'm gonna work on that. Emails are short, my words are long.
I would just like to say congratulations too, and to ask you, just as aspiring leaders, what would be your biggest piece of advice for us at this time?
Wherever you are on the bus, work hard. People do notice. And that has always been my driving force as a teacher. I worked my butt off. I wanted my kids to love me. I wanted to love them, even the hardest ones. I would be sitting at my desk praying over them. Lord, when they come back from specials, change my heart, because I got to love this kid so he can know that I love him. And, you know, so just wherever you are on your journey, work really, really hard. I remember at one point in my district, they had all these principal positions that opened, and they were middle and high school. And my husband saying, I mean, you've been doing this AP thing for a long time. Why don't you apply for some of these other jobs? And I'm like, I don't want to work in a middle school, and I really hate high school. So I can't do those jobs. They don't sleep in high school. That school is open 24/7. Like, no. And I just thought, like, I love what I was doing as an AP, and I love the school that I was in, and I loved my community. Wherever you are, if you love it, don't rush to the next thing, you know, because God will provide the thing that your heart wants the most. And so just staying firm on what your, again, core values. What do you value? What do you want? And staying cemented, planted in that, and you'll get to where you're going. And thank y'all, because I got lots of emails congratulating me. And I was very shocked to be named the AP of the year for Mississippi. I was very shocked. But I had a good time. We went to National Harbor, Maryland, which is a little town outside of DC. So we got to do both. And the other thing I add to that, Leanne, if you're given an opportunity to serve, like on a committee or anything MDEs is having, things of that nature, put yourself out there. That would be the other point. Because as I started serving as I'm the Mississippi Federal Relations Coordinator for NAESP, that's where I feel like I got noticed. Somebody asked me if I would be willing to do it. And I'm like, I know nothing about federal programs. I've never done that, but I jumped in full on, tried to learn some things, reached out to the federal programs person in my district, as well as on the state level, just asking what are some things that are going on in our state. And I've started to learn more. So anytime there's an opportunity to serve, I always use the word serve because it has no money attached to it. So if you're ever given the opportunity to serve and go outside of your comfort zone, do it. Someone's watching. Okay, well, I am going to grade some papers today because I know I have some there that need to be graded. And I'm going to get those kind of this following week. That's the goal, is to get all of the things graded that need to be graded, because I know that's what y'all look for. If there's any comments, and I'm going to say this again because I know someone is commenting under the comments. I don't see that. I don't even get notification that you left me another comment. And if I am getting notifications, I don't see them and I don't know how to get to them. But if you have a question about a graded assignment, inbox it in Canvas or send me an email. That way I can respond to it. And I know one big question last week was about the Turnitin score. I don't know how you guys can see that ahead of time. I did William Carey, and the only time I saw my Turnitin score was after I turned it in. And I've gone back and resubmitted it before to get it down. But if any of you all are going further and you're going to write a dissertation one day, you're going to have to get it down to below 14%. Because if you don't, they will not give you credit for the parts of your dissertation. And that's why you always see me give you that comment. It's just the thing that I think you should learn to practice, getting your Turnitin score. If it's in the green, it's good. is when it changes colors, because the green can go up to, I think, like 21%. But I always just recommend getting it down, especially if you're in red or yellow or that burnt orange looking color. But most of the things that I've read, y'all have done a great job analyzing the domains and working together on your group project. So I do appreciate the effort y'all have put into your assignments. But that is all I have. Look at my notes. Again, y'all know I take notes because I like to be prepared for y'all. Yeah, that's it. Like, we're at the end of this. I will think everything is due on a Monday. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, because I haven't been on here since last week. What is the last day to do your, I think it's a discussion in week 10, isn't it Monday?
Wednesday.
It's the Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday. Thank you. That's why I said I may be wrong and I could have that date wrong in my head. So Wednesday is not a Sunday. So be very careful with that, because if it's due on that Wednesday, I have to have all of your grades turned in by that Friday. So I won't even see it if you put it in Sunday because it's closed out. So be careful with that. And I think week 10 is a discussion. Please be honest with your feedback. If there is something I need to do differently, be honest. I have very tough skin. It will not hurt my feelings. I promise you. Kids are cruel. I think adults are helpful. Kids say things to hurt your feelings. Adults normally want to help. I've heard that's in reverse, but I tell myself it differently. So it depends. It's what you tell yourself is what matters, right? No? Okay. But that is all I have. If there is nothing else. Oh, I was supposed to remind y'all, if you haven't registered for the fall trimester, please get in there and register. You need to do that. Everyone should have their mentor forms already turned in, because you will have to start your clinical practice hours shortly after.
I do have a question about some of that.
Okay.
On the original form they gave us, we were doing that 6:35 next trimester, but now we're not. Have they redone that schedule to where we can have the new schedule?
Angeline, I am an adjunct. I have no idea.
Okay.
Send that to Kathy Sellers. Dr. Sellers knows all about that, but yeah, I don't attend those meetings, so I don't know. I wished I was a better resource for that sort of thing, and she didn't tell me anything about it. So, all right, y'all enjoy your Saturday. Do like our friend Crystal Mosley and get outside and enjoy some of the summer sun before it's so hot that we can't stand it. Have a good rest of the week, y'all. Bye.